Howdy, and thanks for everyone attending today. As mentioned, my colleague Ethel Mejia and I will be presenting on the building a SciENcv Biosketch and leveraging existing profiles and also preparing different documentation associated with grant submission. As David mentioned, the NSF has required the use of the SciENcv for grant submission since October 2023, and the National Institutes of Health will begin requiring it on May 25th. So the presentation is indeed timely. So next slide, please. So our agenda for the session is we'll first discuss ORCID, which is a researcher profile system that many of you may already be aware of. In general, ORCID can help you populate portions of the ScieENcv biosketches. We'll do a little demo of ORCID. We'll then discuss Scholars at TAMU, which is our local researcher profile system that also has an ORCID integration and can be used to help populate the ScieENcv as well. We'll spend most of the time discussing ScieENcv, and then we'll do a demo of that too, if it cooperates. It's been a little glitchy this week, so we'll see. And then we'll have the Q&A at the end. So with that, I'll hand things over to Ethel to talk about ORCID.
Thank you, David, and howdy, folks. Many of us have already multiple social and professional networking accounts that combined tells a story of who we are in the public's view, because a lot of this, you have the capacity to make it private or have it public. Some are not as popular as others, but today we're going to focus on ORCID for your digital author identity, Scholars at TAMU, of course, for your researcher identity within the A&M institution and your reputation, and SciENcv for grant application requirements. So let's go ahead and dive right in. What's ORCID? ORCID is a free-to-use platform that provides users with a unique and persistent digital identifier that organizations, publishers, and funders link to your publication and grants. And some of you ask, well, why do I need one? My name is unique. Well, I did too. So try Googling your name. Are you surprised how many other people in the world share your same name? I was. I didn't know there was a whole bunch of Ethel Mejias out there. And also, have you ever found anyone else who does similar research that has your same name? Someone in our audience today, Dr. Bruce Hubbard, actually has another Bruce Hubbard that does research in geology. And now think of how many different ways your name is added to a paper. ORCID can help by distinguishing you from all those others. It helps streamline application submissions too, because this is sometimes used to identify you throughout your career. If you maintain your ORCID profile well, it also has the benefit of increasing the visibility of your publications because you have the capacity to manage and ensure its completeness and accuracy. And because it's free, a lot of systems are able to integrate and reuse the information from your ORCID. Getting your ORCID is similar to how you signed up for other profile systems. So let's go ahead and go to orcid.org. At the top right, just click the sign in and register button. If you don't already have an account, click the register now, and that will give you this pretty short form, and click the next steps, and that will send you a verification email. Once you click that email, you'll have your ORCID ID. If you already have one and you added your A&M email to it, you can just click here and say sign in through your institution. If you haven't logged through it before, type Texas A&M here, and there it is. And just click sign in with this organization, and there it is. So your ORCID profile will look similar to this. Well, I mean, it's probably much better than mine because I don't do a lot of traditional research, but I have worked and helped manage research groups for those who do. So your profile can include as much of or as little information that you want publicly available. This includes all the way that you have your name written down, all the email addresses that you have. You can see where I set some of this to private and some of it to public view. The websites that you have links to, other researcher IDs that you have, keywords that you use for your research, your biography, where you worked, where you went to school, professional organizations you've joined, grant funding you've had, and of course, your publications. So ORCID tracks all these identifiers, all these identifying information throughout your career, no matter where you move. So you don't need to create a new one every time. Scholars at TAMU, on the other hand, provides you with a more holistic identity and helps you manage your reputation within the A&M research community. So what else is Scholars at TAMU? It's a searchable profile system that helps improve the discoverability of your scholarly works. We'll link out to papers directly as much as possible and enhance the scholarly identity, ensuring that you have control over your profile. It also allows our visitors to search for new collaborators. In some departments, they've actually used our site to identify researchers to ask to submit proposals. So in Scholars at TAMU, we try to update as much information as we can by linking to other A&M systems and provide users the power to add as much or little information as they want. Control over your own profile means control over your reputation. We want to help as much as possible, so we made the data reusable. You can enter once and use it many times. This includes linking and reusing data for departmental websites and exporting publications lists to SciENcv and Faculty 180. Currently, Scholars only creates profiles for faculty and staff researchers. So how do people search in Scholars? Here are some tips. Using Boolean logic and using quotation marks. Searching for a word or phrase will search a person's entire profile. So it'll give you a list of people, organizations, and even other key phrases that researchers have added to their profiles. And because we use linked data, you're also able to see someone's collaboration network. We're happy to help generate special reports upon request, so this isn't the only report that you'll be able to get from Scholars. For those that don't get traditional citation metrics, we also have a subscription to Altmetrics. It provides you with a narrative of your societal impacts, such as news and social media mentions, citations in policy and patent documents, and you can also save and export your reports. Scholars at TAMU provides these citations within your scholarly works, and you can also get to it through your profile editor. So how do I log in? So on the top right of a Scholars TAMU page, you can click Edit My Profile, log in with your NetID. Then you'll be able to edit your information by clicking on one of these tabs. And for those of you that don't have one yet, please accept my apologies and request a Scholars at TAMU profile by completing and submitting this form. Adding a CV will also help me pre-add as much information as possible so you don't have to start from scratch. Some of the information we recommend that will help enhance your Scholars at TAMU profile include your current TAMU affiliations, an overview blurb of your research, websites that you have, and research areas that that identify your research interests, and of course, tagging your publications with the United Nations Sustainable Developmental Goals. also quite important is adding your publications and your scholarly outputs. We use several publication databases like the Web of Science, Scopus, PubMed, Dimensions, and Crossref to find items that are potentially authored by you. So if we find a publication that's potentially yours, we'll add it to your profile editor, and you can either click claim or reject if it's not yours. You can also request for us to add items we missed by clicking the Add Items button, and you can provide us with a URL, an identifier such as DOI or PubMed ID, and we'll go ahead and add the rest of the information for you. Now, if we've missed a lot of your stuff or we found too many for you to go through, please contact me directly and I'll try to help make it as least painful as possible. Once you're happy with your output list, you can select and export this to other systems. One of them is ScieENcv. So first select to see as many items as you want, up to 500. Then select the publications you want to export, or you can select all if you want all of them. Once you have that selected, click the Export RIS File button. Then head on over to ScieENcv. Click Manage My Bibliography. Click Add Citations from a file. Upload the RIS file that you just downloaded from Scholars at TAMU. And voila, there it is. Now, speaking of ScieENcv, I am going to stop sharing my screen and hand you over to David.
Okay, thank you, Ethel. So, ScieENcv. So, ScieENcv is a researcher profile system that was developed by kind of a partnership of a number of federal agencies. It helps researchers assemble the information and documentation needed for federally funded research submissions. More specifically, it supports the creation of biosketches for the National Institutes of Health and the National Science Foundation and the Institute of Education Sciences, as well as NSF current and pending other support. As mentioned earlier, it's been mandated by the use of ScieENcv has been mandated since October 23rd, 2023, and the INH will require it starting in May 25th. It's integrated into a number, well, before that, I should mention that when you go to create the forms, these biosketches and the current and pending support, it is automatically using updated forms. So that's one of the benefits of it. When you do create it, it's using the most updated forms. And it is integrated into a number of systems, and ORCID is one of them. In terms of accessing ScieENcv, there is a web page for that. But you will find multiple access points throughout a number of different systems. The URL here will take you to the ScieENcv website. And then in terms of logging in, there's so many options. But one of them is under more options, you can log in with your Texas A&M University SSO. And we'll do that in a moment. When you do log in, initially you'll need to create an account. It's really just a username and password, and that's about it. And then that'll create the NCBI website. That'll create the that'll create your ScieENcv account on NCBI platform. So there is a mini profile, what they used to call a mini profile here, that will give your name, title, institution, and then if you integrate with ORCID ID, which you essentially need to do, or other system, it'll show that, or with the NSF ID, it'll show that. So that's all treated as public information, and you can edit that. The documents that you can create in ScieENcv, as mentioned before, it's basically NSF and NIH biosketches, and then NSF current and pending support. There's a number of ways to do that in terms of data sources. So you can use an external source like ORCID to help populate some of the fields in those biosketches. So that's what we'll demo first. You can also use an existing document. So if you created a document previously within SciENcv, you can bring that up, basically make a copy and then edit that. If those two options are not available to you, you can kind of start with a blank document. But you do want to kind of leverage the existing data in ORCID and in Scholars at TAMU to do this. Okay, so when you do go to that URL, here's the SciENcv website. This lives on the National Center for Biotechnology Information website. It's part of the MyNCBI. There's a number of different tools there, including SciENcv. If you're interested in learning more about SciENcv, there is a link on the left side for background information, and there's help documentation here. Also, at the end of the PowerPoint, I have a number of links that highlight some of the information resources on this. So I'm going to try a live demo. Okay, so here we are at the website. And as mentioned, if you click on background information, you can learn more about SciENcv. I mean, in general, this tool is used to create documentation for those grant submissions for NIH and NSF. And the biosketches and also the current and pending support, they're really kind of disclosure documents. They're trying to use those documents to assess your capability of conducting that research, other commitments that you might have in terms of your time. So do you have the time to do this as well? And disclosing things that they really want you to disclose. And like I said, there's the help documentation too. There's the help manual. It's kind of busy, but I do highlight a few things at the end of the PowerPoint. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and log in. So let me go back one more. There we go. So if you do have accounts with these two, with ERA Commons or NSF, you could log in that way. Again, I would go under more options or log in. These basically go to the same spot. It kind of remembers me since I've logged in before, but other login options, this is typically what it looks like. It gives you these options here to log in, but I would go to more login options here, and then you could search for Texas A&M up here. There we go, top of the T's. So here we are at my profile. The first time through, it may just say my profile and then have an edit button here. And then this is where you can enter in your name, how you want it to display, your title, department, your organization. And this is where you could do the ORCID integration here. Mine's already integrated, but it would say something like this. Select a link here to link to your ORCID. You'd click on that, and then you would take you over to your ORCID account, and then you would authorize this to be integrated and linked and synced. And again, this is editable. And this may, again, is treated as kind of public data. These are documents that I've created in the past just to kind of play around with it. So let's go ahead and create a document. So new document here. What document do you want to create? Let's say an NSF biographical sketch. Let's give it a title. Do something like this. Let's see if this works. And then again, you can use a number of different data sources. We're going to use an external source, and then we click source here, and then here's the ORCID since it's been integrated. So we'll go ahead and select that. Great document. Okay, there we go. So it opened up that page. I'll point out a few different things. There's a number of sections here. So there's this identifying information, organization location, professional preparation. This has been pulled over from ORCID. Appointments and positions, been pulled over from ORCID. Products, we'll see how we can get citations and other research outputs in here. And then there's a certification down at the bottom. I'll also point out that last year they had another section which was called the synergistic activities, and that's been pulled out of this. This was actually section D, and that is created in a separate document, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. So this describes the biographical sketch here. You could read more if you'd like. Here's some instructions. There's some instructions kind of embedded into this form that you're filling out. But if you go over here, this will take us over to the NSF Proposal and Award Policies and Procedures Guide, or PAPPG. I'll just call that PAP. And then it brings me down to the section on biographical sketches and provides me with additional information about how to complete the form. And so again, that's all part of this document here under the proposal and preparation instructions. So back at NSF biographical sketch, come down here, add information. So this is pretty basic information. So this was the title that we entered, filled in the name. I can, since I filled this out before, it sort of pre-populates, but you go ahead and fill in these fields. It now wants the country and state. And then we click save. Okay, so then that section's done. Professional preparation. So these are basically all the degrees and training from the bachelor on up, including postdoctoral and fellowship training. So again, this is pulled over from the ORCID. You can edit this if you needed to edit something. You can click on there and change dates or names or things. You could remove something if you needed to. You could also add in things manually as well. Appointments and positions. So as described up here, so these are all appointments and positions, including part-time and voluntary, adjunct, visiting, honorary. Also, they want to know about all domestic and foreign professional appointments and positions outside the primary organization for a period of up to 3 years. Again, here we can edit. I'm going to delete this one here. So I just deleted an entry. But you can come in here and edit things. Edit or add additional appointments or positions manually as well. You could also make those edits in ORCID, but then I believe you'd have to come over here and basically edit an existing document to kind of update it. I don't think that'll happen automatically. Okay, products. So these are essentially, I would say, research outputs, but not necessarily so. Oftentimes these are publications or inventions or other things that have come out of research that you've done. But these are supposed to be closely related to the proposed project in some way. So maybe this is previous work that you've done, or maybe this is similar work that would, again, illustrate your ability to carry out your proposed research. So you're going to list up to 5 that are closely related, and then another 5 that could be related, but not necessarily, but somehow, again, illustrative of your ability to conduct the work that you're describing in this proposal. Okay, so to add items in here, I'm going to select related products. Now, this was a little bit glitchy this morning, so we'll see how it works today. So you'll see 2 tabs here. One's ORCID, and these are showing publications that are over in my ORCID. And then my bibliography is part of my NCBI account, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But let's say we use ORCID here, and we say that, these, let's save 2, third one here. There we go. So save 3, continue, and then it's populated those. And we can rearrange these. If we wanted to rearrange these in some different order, we can just drag and drop. And we can add up to 5 of those. We'll select other products here, other significant products. So again, may or may not be directly related, but again, illustrates your ability to conduct this work. So we're going to use my bibliography. So sometimes it won't be in somebody's ORCID. So you could update your ORCID and then refresh it, and then it would show up there. But another option you have is my bibliography. So let me click on this. So it's showing 14 citations here. Let me go over to my bibliography. So manage my bibliography. So again, this is part of my NCBI. So let me take a little bit higher level view and go to that. So when you created the account initially with SciENcv, you basically created a my NCBI account. And then there's my bibliography. You see SciENcv over here. So if we click here, it'll take me back over to SciENcv down in the lower right-hand corner here. So with my bibliography, I'm going to go back to manage my bibliography here. So this is another way to get citations of products to cite in the Biosketch. So add citations here. So you have a couple of options. So one is from a file. So as Ethel mentioned, you can export from, say, another researcher profile like scholars at TAMU. You can export from there and get citations into my bibliography here. And other sources as well, databases. Usually it's exported as an RIS file and then uploaded here. You could also add things manually, and that could be the case for things that are not journal articles sometimes, like maybe a patent, and then it provides you fields, and then you fill that out, and then you can add that citation. And then that would be available to you to add into the Biosketch from SciENcv. Okay. So I'm going to go back to SciENcv the way, let's see, I think this tab, there we go. Okay, so we're back to filling out the NSF biographical sketch. Okay, and we're down here with the other significant products. So I'm just going to select a couple more here. You could also kind of mix and match. So you could pick a couple from here. So that's 2, and then you can come over to ORCID and select another. So that's 3 total, and then continue. And now it's added those as well. And again, you can drag and drop those. So that's really all the fields. Then you come down to the certification. And so then they want the senior or key person to certify that this information is complete and accurate. They also have I believe this is something new here about not being a party to a malign foreign talent recruitment program. And then you click download. You could look at a draft of it if you want, but you can go ahead and download the PDF, and then this would certify it. And so then again, this is the certification here. We click certify, and then it creates a PDF. And so then this is what it looks like. It's in the most updated form for the NSF biographical sketch. And it's been certified here. So if we need to make changes to this, we would go back, edit them, and then certify again. And then this document would be uploaded into grants.gov or research.gov along with the submission. Now you can assign delegates to potentially do some of this work for you. And you do that under this icon here that will get you to the account settings. So then you can click account settings. This shows the linked accounts, including the ORCID. You could add additional ones. You could link something if you wanted to, if you were involved, if you have an account for ERA Commons. You could link that as well. That's a software management system for managing NIH grants. But down here is delegates. So you can add a delegate. So I added Ethel the other day. You can provide access to your SciENcv, as well as that my bibliography that's on the NCBI website. So to add a delegate, you just click add, you enter in the email. This will send that individual a link in an email. And if they don't have an account, it will invite them to register for an NCBI account, to have a SciENcv account. And then when they do that, let me go to my NCBI. When they do that, down here under SciENcv, it'll say, I think it says delegate for. I don't have I haven't been assigned a delegate, but for someone that has, it would say delegate for, and then there would be, as a heading, and then there would be those that have allowed delegate access. Okay. Now, going back to the, let's see, go back to manage my SciENcv. I'm going to go back to that document here, the NSF biographical sketch. If I'm a delegate and I'm working on the behalf of someone, it will indicate up at the top that that's the case, that you're working as a delegate on somebody else's SciENcv. When you go to certify, when you download the PDF to certify, this will actually generate a window here, and then you'll send, it sends an email to the senior key personnel or principal investigator to certify. So the senior key personnel is the one that needs to certify and not the delegate. So it would send a message, then that individual would certify, and then the delegate would be able to download the PDF certified. Okay, so we're going to move on to another document. So I'm going to go back to SciENcv. We'll talk about creating a new document for the NSF current and pending support. I'm just going to use today's date here. You would want to use something more descriptive. And in this case, the choices are to use one that you've prepared earlier. And so then you can basically make a copy and edit that, or start with a blank document. And that's going to be the case here. So then we create. And so here we are at that online form. Again, there's some information here that you could read through, describing the purpose of this form. And then here are the instructions for the current and pending support. And again, that's taking us back to that those guidelines that I showed earlier for the proposal. Was it again? Proposal and award policies and procedure guide, or PAP. And so then this provides you with additional information about how to fill out that document beyond what's actually here embedded in it. Again, you have identifying information, organization, location. So it's going to pretty much pre-populate for me since I filled it out once before. Okay, so that. Then proposals / active projects. So this is mainly, again, to try to figure out how you're already committed. So, how has your time already been divided up amongst existing proposals that you have or pending proposals, so current or pending. So add a proposal or active project. You basically have a blank form here. Maybe we'll call this informal STEM education. Let's say this is current support I have, whatever the award number might have been. Let's say this source is NSF, primary place of where this work is being performed. So let's say College Station. Let's say for 100,000 maybe. Start date, let's say it started last year. Say it's 3 years, 2026. And then it wants you to determine, there's some help here, how many person months are you devoting to that? And so you could put 3 for 2024, 2025. I believe this would be an anticipated amount. It's like 4 there. I'm not sure about the future here. I didn't add something in, say 6. Over here, you would indicate the overall objectives of this current or pending proposal. And this is limited to 1,500 characters, so this is about 200 words or so. So you just type this in, overall objectives that work. And then this here, a statement of potential overlap, is how does this proposal here, this pending or this current or pending research overlap with what's being proposed? And if there is none, then you could type none. Otherwise, you would explain that. So we'll click Save here. And then you can add in more. In-kind contributions. So these are basically non-cash contributions provided by external entities that are directly supporting your research. You only report these if the dollar value is 5,000 or more, and that it requires commitment of an individual's time. So we click on that button there. Maybe you're receiving some sort of lab services from an outside source. Maybe some company is interested in this research and they're going to volunteer their services. So current source, maybe we'll say it's Omega Labs. Maybe the dollar value is 16,000, so or 6,000. They're going to do some lab work for you. This is going to happen in June of this year. And then how much time is that? So say maybe 1 month. Again, you would describe overall objectives of that work. And then down here, any potential overlap of the proposal. Maybe you need to do additional lab work beyond what you're being given. And so that potentially could be an overlap. Okay, if none, then none. Okay, those are really the 3 sections there on the current and pending support. And then this document is also, oh, there was an error here. So if you don't complete it properly, it will warn you about that. It will not let you certify it. So let's see what I left out. Oh, I wanted something for objectives. So we'll type in objectives. Save. There we go. Okay, and so then it's ready again to download and certify. Okay, as mentioned, I'll talk about the NIH Biosketch in a moment. Let me go back to, we talked about those synergistic activities that had been removed from the NSF biographical sketch. So let me go back to the PowerPoint. Okay, the NSF synergistic activities, these were on the NSF Biosketch, but were removed back in May of last year. And just taking a quote from the PAP, this is an individual, each individual identified as senior key person must provide a document of up to 1 page. So this is limited to 1 page. And it will list up to 5 distinct examples that demonstrates the broader impact of the individual's professional and scholarly activities that focus on the integration and transfer of knowledge, as well as its creation. To the best of my knowledge, there's no particular template for this. I believe you'd create this in a Word document. I would, name, ORCID, title, affiliation, and then it's basically 5 numbered points. These, if it's a page long, if you do up to 5 and they need to be distinct, these are kind of short paragraphs, and we'll see an example of this in a moment. As a matter of fact, that moment is now. So these are some examples I found. Purdue has a template and Columbia, and they're illustrating what some of these look like. And so they've provided some instructions here. But for example, don't just say that you're a journal editor or a conference committee chair, but talk a little bit more about kind of the broader impact of that. And so they've given some examples for that and research related activities to give you ideas about that. But again, kind of a short paragraph. And the same thing with Purdue here. And they've provided some examples as well. I have an example, not necessarily the best of examples, but in this case, I've kind of borrowed some of the text from Anthony here, but kind of modified things a little bit. So in my mind, this is a pretty minimal example of a synergistic activity where they're describing basically their research, but I don't think they're really going into that broader impact or how it's been integrated, beyond just its creation. So I took this and then kind of tacked on something like this. So in my mind, this is how you would get to that by including something like, the findings were implemented at 5 school districts in Texas. Maybe they did a survey and found that increased interest in STEM degrees among graduating seniors. You could talk about the dissemination and maybe the impact of that. Maybe it's been incorporated into policy documents. These are all things that some of the information and scholars at TAMU could help out with, and some of the things that and resources that the University Library has that can help out with this. Again, I'd also look at some of those documents from Purdue and Columbia to get ideas as well. I go back to SciENcv. I'm going to shift gears a little bit and just talk a bit about the NIH Biosketch. So new document here. Call this NIH. NIH Biosketch. Again, we could use an external source. We use ORCID. Create. Okay, so pre-populated this. All these fields are editable if you want. Again, it's bringing in information from ORCID, which I can edit. This personal statement came in from ORCID, but it can be deleted, and then you can type in something else. When you do edit these text boxes on this form, you'd want to click the little green button to indicate that it's saved. So then, again, under this personal statement, I should point out here, up at the top, are instructions. So if you click on here, this will take you to the NIH instructions for completing this. They do have an example here to look at. We'll come back to that in a moment. So the personal statement, this is again trying to provide information about, why are you qualified? How are you uniquely qualified to conduct this, what you're proposing. You can select some citations to support that. It's limited to 4. Now they're in the process of working on this form because this is going to be required in May. And so some of the functionality isn't there anymore. I'm selecting these from my bibliography. Let's try that again. Save citations. Yeah, this one was a little glitchy. Let me try to work it over here. It says that there's already been, let me clear these. So none, I'm going to clear that. ORCID. Save citations. Let me refresh here, see if that does anything. Yeah, it's just been a little glitchy today on SciENcv, but normally it would list them in a similar way that they were listed in the NSF Biosketch. Down here, you could add in honors if you wanted to, like that. And then contributions to science. So these are, again, kind of unique contributions. So you have 5 of these. If we look over on the example, here's that example of the NIH biographical sketch. You can kind of get a better idea of what these look like. So you know, kind of grouping these on the body of research and then the kind of the supporting work associated with that. And these are all, you know, kind of short paragraphs and associated citations. This document is should not exceed 5 pages. So that might give you an idea of how long different sections should be. So you can edit the description. You would just going to copy and paste this text here just to illustrate this. And then I'm going to click the green check to save it. Click. We'll see if this works here to add the citations. We'll do that from ORCID. Okay, it worked here. Now, one of the functionalities that's not working here, it says that you can drag and drop these, but you cannot right now. So in terms of the order that these would show up, it's kind of random. I think if you maybe select them one at a time, you can get them to order a little bit better. But there's only 4 there, and then ultimately they're going to fix that. Then if you want to add another contribution, then again, here. Select citations. You should be able to kind of mix and match between my bibliography and ORCID. See if that works. Typo. Okay. And then this could be exported. This doesn't have the certification here. I should mention you could also link my bibliography from the NCBI website to it if you wanted to. You could download this as a Word document and possibly edit it a little bit, but you want to keep the formatting. I mean, that's the whole idea, is that this is formatted in a standardized way, or you could export it as a PDF. So this is it here. With that, I'll go back to the PowerPoint. Some additional resources here. So this takes you to that help manual that we saw at the ScieENcv website. This is those instructions for the Biosketch for NIH. This is a FAQ for the Biosketches. This is a video YouTube presentation by NSF on the NSF biographical sketch and current and pending support using ScieENcv. This is an FAQ for ScieENcv from NSF. Also includes some embedded video links and screenshots and contact information. And then the University Libraries has a guide, a web page with information and screenshots about the Biosketch, signing up for it, assigning delegates, those types of things. Looking for additional assistance, this link here will take you to the contact page of the Sponsored Research Services, where you can find your contacts there for your department. You could also schedule a consultation with the university libraries on this. We can help you a little bit with some of the mechanics, especially when it comes to kind of corralling those citations into my bibliography or or working with the ORCID, and as well as scholars at TAMU. And then this is really the only contact information I found for SciENcv. So this is an email here. I've asked them a couple of questions over the last few months, and they've been pretty responsive. So thank you.
Thank you all for having us.